Alrighty, welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I'm Jordan, and today we are going to look at Old Forester Signature 100 Proof. And it's a pretty good little whiskey, I have to say. A lot of people are fans of the Old Forester brand. They have many different varieties now. They have a lot of the pre-prohibition ones, 1886, I believe, 1910, 1920. And a couple other varieties that I'm not sure off the top of my head. Make sure you go out and explore their lineups. The interesting thing and what actually led me to this bottle as opposed to the normal standard Old Forester, their 86 proof stuff was the 100 proof was actually like 30 cents cheaper for whatever reason. So that led me to pick up this bottle, and I'm quite happy that I did. It's a very excellent bottle. So this is Old Forester. It's produced by Brown-Forman, and it's at least 2 years old. And this is 100 proof, so it's 50% ABV. I picked it up for $18.59. And like I said, some of the other varieties, most notably the 86 proof, was $18.89. So I saved myself 30 cents, got the 100 proof instead of the 86. Quite happy with that. So I'm going to pour this and we'll get into it a little bit here. And then we're going to talk about an experience that I recently had that was a new one for me, and I found it to be quite interesting. And it's not going to be a whiskey related experience, but it's something that I'm going to encourage everybody to get out and try at least once in their life and check it out if you haven't done so already. So, oh man, okay, very, very, very cherry forward. It's not medicinal at all like the Evan Williams stuff. This is like sweet fruit cherries, not candied at all, not like maraschino cherries or something like that. It's very, go to the store, pick up a sweet cherry and eat it cherry. It's very, very nice. It's a floral cherry, I guess, a sweet floral cherry. Has some dark fruit notes in there. And it's perfumey. Yeah, it has a very perfumey quality to it. It's very nice. Let's see. My notes say I got a light oak, brown sugar, and it's hard to get past the cherry. I'll agree with it. It's hard to get past the cherry. That's definitely dominating. If I try really, really hard, I might be able to pick up some brown sugar, but I'm not really finding it. And the oak, there's no oak there today. The perfuminess and the cherry are just overwhelming my nose right now, so I just can't get past those two things. Um, and with that perfumey, it's that light floral perfumey appleness, similar to a Buffalo Trace, but this definitely doesn't have that classic profile. But it's a similar nose um, element, I would say, that's in there. Okay, that heavier proof, it's it's bringing a good depth to each one of those nose characteristics um, in the flavor profile. It starts out apple and vanilla and honey with that floral compound very forward. Moves into a light cherry in the that follows that. So it goes from like a light sweet fruit to a dark fruit, moving into that cherry, um, and that floralness kind of being in the middle there, kind of opens up and it clings to your tongue pretty good. You get a little bit of an ethanol burn in there that kind of follows follows off the back of your tongue and down your throat a little bit, and it starts to burn a little bit in there. In a very pleasant way, though. Nothing's overpowering. Um, and then it moves into this. I don't. It moves into a brown sugar flavor, but not very sweet. It mellows out. So, kind of moving into the finish. That's kind of the note that's leading into that finish. Is this mellow brown sugar. Now in the second sip, that was very cherry forward, very sweet candy cherry forward. Um, and that note's kind of persisting through kind of that floral apple, brown sugar, and then it moves back into this cherry note on the finish, where it picks up a little bit of oak and a little bit of pepper, and then that note is just drawn out for a really long time with that alcohol. It's very, very pleasant. I think you can get more out of this bottle if you sat with it for a while and explored it a bit more. I think there's more in there, or you could kind of tease out some of the different parts of that flavor profile a bit more. But man, very, very nice. I mean, they're classic bourbon notes, but on the same token, they're classic bourbon notes presented in a manner that you don't find in a lot of whiskeys. So very, very enjoyable. Definitely go out and pick up one of these. Um, as I said, it was only $18.59 here in Wyoming. Let me know what you can find it for in your area. Okay, so today's topic of conversation is the shed hunting opener. Okay, so here in Wyoming and in several states across the West, this has now become a new phenomenon. So, for those who are unfamiliar, shed hunting is the act of going out and every spring, deer, moose, elk, um, those are the main ones here in the lower 48, up in Alaska, caribou, they all drop their antlers. The males drop their antlers and they shed them, and then they start regrowing them almost the same. As soon as they drop them, they start the process of regrowing them. For those who don't know, antler is the fastest growing. I think it's the fastest growing biologic material out there. It's definitely the fastest growing bone. It can grow several inches a day, which is very, very impressive. And so these animals drop their antlers as their hormone levels drop in the spring, and they start the process of growing them over as they start to get better nutrition as the world around them, the snow's melting and stuff like that, and nutrition is starting to come to them as the ground is greening up, and the brand new grasses and stuff can provide that nutritional quality. Okay, so what does that mean about anything? Well, in the last 15 years, maybe 20 years, there has been this increasing push and rise of people going out and looking for shed antlers, which is great. It's a great activity. It trains your eyes. If you're a hunter or an outdoor person or a bird watcher or something like that, it's a good thing. You go out, you can train your eyes to pick out minute details from the landscape. Oftentimes, when the landscape blends together, and it's a good reason to get outdoors in the spring. Oftentimes there aren't too many hunting seasons here. There's a bear hunting season, turkey hunting season. In some areas you can go hunt hogs, not in Wyoming, but in other states. So your hunting opportunities are moderately limited, and then due to the weather, like here, the bear hunting can be hit and miss depending. Like you can't just pick a specific day and go, this day is the day I'm going to go hunting, because like last year, it rained and snowed all the way through the middle. Well, on the solstice, my wife and I and her sister were up hiking up in the mountains here, and it snowed on June 21st last year. So you can't always count on a specific date. You kind of have to watch the weather. This year, it's been a fair bit warmer earlier, and so things have melted off. And it's just a good reason to go out and do something. And as that has become more popular and people have started making furniture and doing stuff, there's actually a huge market for sheds. I think on any given year, an elk antler or a moose antler, there's typically a wholesaler who will come around and purchase antlers, and they will pay anywhere between $12 to $15 per pound for an elk or a moose antler. Now, considering that an elk antler, often you have 20 plus pounds of antler if you find two of them, the matching set, one from each side. You have 20 plus pounds of bone there, so 20 pounds times $15, that's $200, $300. So, that's that's a good amount of money. So, all of a sudden, the commercial side of this has pushed people into this frenzy Um, and I have to admit, I've not done it for the money yet, but there's definitely a thrill going out and finding something, knowing that you've actually done it. I have not found an elk shed ever. I believe I have a moose paddle that is just a little bullwinkle fork horn. Most people wouldn't think it's a moose shed at all. That I found when we lived up in Montana, and I have, tons of deer sheds that I found from all over the place. Those are pretty easy to find. But the elk are down on their wintering grounds, so they're down low in the valleys where there's less snow to scrape through, and they can get down to the grasses and the stuff that they need to eat to make it through the winter. And they congregate in these areas and have traditionally for probably hundreds, if not thousands of years, that this is kind of the general location that they go to every winter. And this is a fairly well known phenomena. And in many of the states out west here, those areas can oftentimes be protected areas. So they can be like wildlife refuges, or here, several of them are WMAs, which is wildlife management areas, and they close those areas down to all human entrance until May 15th. Okay, so no human is allowed into that area. And this is done for a very specific reason. So these animals have gone through winter. They're at their absolute lowest point of nutritional quality in the year. So the food they're eating is not the best. And they've expelled all of their fat reserves and whatever. This is like the absolute worst condition that animal is going to be in for the year on the average. And now all of a sudden, if, say, it was 20 years ago and these areas were open to the public, you have people going in there, hiking around, running around, and as the price and value of those antlers went up, you have people going in there and actually physically chasing and molesting the animals in order to get them to run or to jostle their head or whatever to get those antlers to fall off so that they can go over there and collect them, whether for their own personal, possession or for sale, right? So now you're taking an animal that's at the very, the pinnacle of the most difficult time of their annual cycle, and you're stressing them even further by making them run or do something that they wouldn't normally have to do, right? So that's why they close these areas down. So, long-winded explanation, they open them up at a specific time. So the National Elk Refuge over in Jackson Hole has a big opener, and there's literally thousands of people that show up for it. So I went to our local WMA a couple miles up the road. It's a lot smaller. The elk herd that winters there. This year, my wife and I went and looked in March, and there was only something like, we only found like 50 to 100 elk. So my expectation was pretty low. And even with that, there were still several hundred people there at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but excuse me, it sounds like my dog's running around upstairs, probably chasing their ball or doing something. So if it's coming through on the microphone, I'm sorry. All the banging, clanging, whatever, that's my dog upstairs running around. Anyway, so there were still several hundred people there. So I showed up at 10 minutes to 8, gate opened at 8. I wasn't sure whether or not I'd be alone or not. So how most things happen in Wyoming is they have a set date, and that date is the day that things, go off. So like for hunting season, in particular elk season, archery opens on September 1st. Doesn't matter what day of the week September 1st is, it's always September 1st. So if it's a Wednesday, season opens on Wednesday. A lot of states do it differently, where they open up on a particular Saturday or something like that. So the 15th this year of May was a Friday. So I thought, okay, well, maybe there wouldn't be that many people. But due to, there's probably several factors. Number one, COVID. Many people didn't have jobs they had to go to, so there was more people because of that. And number two, because they were able to, or they were able to get off of work or whatever and just go do this. Maybe they took vacation day or something. There was a lot of people there. So I pulled up to the gate, and right away there was like 30 cars at the first gate, and there was 3 gates, and I said, nope. Wheeled it around, drove around to the backside where there's a spine that comes down a ridge, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to hoof it up to the top of this ridge and then work my way across. I did that. 2 other young guys, like in their 23, I think they said they were. They decided they were going to try and race me to the top. once they caught up to me, I was like, hey man, I'm not trying to compete with anybody or whatever. So if you guys want to work together, we can. And so we did. We worked as a group and kind of spread out across the face of the hill and worked out. So we ended up doing it was like 1,600 vertical feet in a half mile or something like that. So for those people who don't know, half mile, 880 yards. So it's pretty steep country. And when we got up there, we ended up meeting people who had hiked across the prairie and straight up the face anyways, and we met them halfway along that spine. It was interesting. So all the people I met were super, super nice. I went there by myself. I'm not a very social person. I don't like to be around other people when I'm out in the woods. I like to be by myself. I don't really appreciate running into other people, but in this instance, you're not going to get away from it. I mean, it's like an opening rifle season or something like that for a lot of other people. But everybody I met were super nice. Nobody seemed to be very competitive or if you've ever run across somebody that like a gold panner or something like that, if you're out in the mountains, they're very squirrely, secretive, and they always look at you with a very suspicious eye, and they don't say a lot or whatever. They don't interact with you, and they're just looking to get away. None of the people I met on while I was out shed hunting was like that, thankfully, which was great. I ended up meeting up with another gentleman. The first two guys, they turned around and went back, met up with another gentleman. He and I walked across the face a bit more. He actually found one. He was the only person I actually saw physically find a shed. Probably ran into 17 to 20 other people along the way, and nobody had come up with anything. We had heard some reports from other people and stuff that some were getting found, and that some were being found way higher up on the mountain than what we were expecting. Like, we were at, what were we at? 6,800 feet, maybe? And there were some reports upwards pushing 8,000 feet. So another 2,000 feet above us, 1,500 feet above us. They were finding stuff. And so, it was a long day. I went for 8 hours. I think I covered eight or 9 miles in total. And I ended up hiking. I only count, when I do my vertical feet, it's only the gain that I get. All the coming down, I never count that. So when I say, I think I did like 2,500 to 3,000 vertical feet, that was all gain. So you go down, come up, whatever, every time I gain, that's what I would count. So that was a pretty long day to come up empty-handed. And if you had the expectation that you were going to get rich or whatever, or even find something, I think that needs to be tempered a little bit because almost nobody I was there with found stuff. Now, due to it becoming so popular and that you can actually make money on it, people actually go in and poach these antlers, so they'll illegally hike in, at night or they'll go in, even during the day, but they'll hike in from a back route or something like that and go in there and pick up a lot of these antlers before the ground's actually open to the public. It's a shiesty move, but people are like that, especially when money's involved. I tend to abide by the rules. Because they're there for the health and safety of the animals, which I agree with. But if you go into it without that expectation, I could see how this activity would be something great to do with your family. Just get out and go for a hike and enjoy your time out there. I met some guys out there. They had brought cigars and whiskey up on the mountain, and they were just sitting down, relaxing, kind of BSing in their group of friends there, having fun. That seems like an incredibly awesome idea to me. If you just go in it, if you go with a really good friend who you always have fun together or whatever, and just are out having fun, I could see this being an extremely fun activity to just pal around with somebody and be out in the wilderness and whatever. We came across some very fresh bear tracks, which was awesome. That was also the bear opener that day for rifle season in that area. It rained a little bit throughout the day. It was like 65, 70 degrees. It was cloudy most of the day with a breeze and whatever. It was just really comfortable and enjoyable to be out there. So if you have the ability to travel to a location where there is some shed hunting going on, I highly encourage you to do so. If not, check out your local area, in every state forest, whatever. If you don't have an elk population, you can certainly find deer sheds, whitetail sheds, almost anywhere. It's just a fun activity to get out and do something. So I'm sure this video is getting long. What am I at already? 20 minutes. That's plenty long. But I just thought it was an interesting experience to kind of be around all these people, and it was almost like the starting line when the gun goes off. Everybody runs out after stuff. It was a little nutso from that perspective, all for some shed antlers, but fun nonetheless. And maybe next year we'll have some old forester with me up on the mountain, because that seems like a good idea. So, till then, like, subscribe, share. I hope you're enjoying this content. Please put in the comments below any comments you have, or content you would like to see, or if you have a particular bottle you would like to see reviewed, put that in there. As always, comment what you can find the whiskey being reviewed for in your area. As I said, this was $18.59. Let me know what you can find it for. But as always, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have yourselves a great day. Get out, have yourselves some fun.